Fitheads. Today we have Philip Samor von Holzendorf failing. And we talk about quantum energy frequencies. Whoa.
Whoa. This was a bit of a mind bottler, so strap in. It was one of those ones, for me at least, where it starts off with auras and energies and frequencies and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? How does that affect me? Or what is going on with that? And then he like systematically, very clearly was like, this is what it means. This is how it affects you. It affects you on a day-to-day basis, physiologically, mentally, blah, blah, blah. These are the things that can block you. These are the experiments we've done that have proven that.
That is what's crazy. Like, the experiments. Okay. And the physically showing it, even on stage, high pressure environment at the Bulletproof conference. And he's shown this thing to be effective. Definitely stick around till he actually shows the device, which it took a bit to get to. And it's fascinating when you learn about how they use it and what he's trying to do.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about frequencies. I know electromagnetic frequencies are your biggest fear these days, right?
Yeah.
Spags, or no? Or is it
back from the red light episode when I started down a rabbit hole of being terrified. But now he's presenting a solution. All the solutions I came across before this were non-solutions. And so it was nice to have someone say, no, it's okay. We can fix that.
It is sort of a fear. Once you delve into it and you're like, wait a minute, who's building towers for what? Why? It made me think of, and I think I said this later on, but it's all like mystical, magical, whatever, woo-woo stuff until somebody goes and proves it. Like, oh, maybe you shouldn't stand in front of the microwave for hours at a time. Or maybe, I don't know, drinking like crappy water. There's all these like long-term studies done and blah, blah, blah. Like it felt a little bit like that. And it felt like he had the, live experiments to back it up and studies to back it up and stuff like that. It was wild. This was wild.
It's a good one.
Welcome to Total Fitheads.
Serious fitness for not so serious people.
Welcome, Philip. How are you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm doing fine.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I'm really excited to learn about this. When I was looking through what you did, I was like, I wish I just had someone to explain it to me. Oh, good. He's here. So can we give the Fitheads background on you? Because you have an interesting backstory that leads to what you're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm a conscious entrepreneur and an energy healer. And I used to be in the corporate world for many, many years, actually, in Europe and in the US. I've been a vice president at T-Mobile in Europe and in the US. And so that's very contrary to doing energy healing work and things like that. But in the early 2000s, I really started that journey because I became really interested in what's behind the surface. And I started to go through certain workshops and learn some energy healing practices myself, shamanic training, past life regression work, and things like that. And I met my wife in 2005, who was born with the ability to see aura and energy fields. So she never lost that ability that we all have. We just kind of forgotten about it. So the ones that weren't born with that knowledge, if you will, they can learn it and train it. Anyway, so that catapulted me even further into that world because I knew, wow, there's so much more. And, long story short, all of that led to the fact that I gotten to know some absolutely top-notch, amazing healers through my journey, but at the same time realized that most of the people out there, they really forgot that there's more to that. And how can we bridge the gap and really help all people with that? And so we've been able to create a technology that, we talk about today, and that we're offering, but really it's a culmination of all these things. There's a lot of my own healing journey that led to that fact. There's my wife's healing journey, and then there's the knowledge of how disconnected most of the world is to their inner core, if you will. And all of that we try to help with.
Okay, so Max and I could see auras when we were born, and we've just lost it.
Yes, absolutely, you could, and it's different it's not the same for everybody. So if you now people that can't see aura, they just envision this as this picture that you see with exactly these colors and that it exactly looks like that. And we envision how the physical seeing is, how we see matter. It's not necessarily the case, because you can see something without seeing it that way. And that's also very important for people that learn this. And I've actually had to learn it the hard way, because I always had a certain construct that I thought, okay, the energy seeing goes this way, but then if it doesn't, and if that's not your way of seeing, you're focused on something that you're not going to get there like that. So I don't know if that makes sense to anybody, but really everyone has the ability to see and perceive that. And everyone already knows, at least, if you go to some restaurant somewhere and you look at the different tables and just envision this, you just go there and you can pick which table you join. Okay. And you haven't met any of those people before. There will be a table where there's some energy that you don't feel drawn to, and there's one where you feel like there's a welcoming, loving energy. So those things happen in our daily lives all the time. We sense these things, but we're not really aware of it. It just happens. But as you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, I've had something like that. And this ability to see aura and all of that is just an extension of that, if you will, because it's like training. I always tell people, if you want to participate in a Wimbledon tournament, you need to not only play tennis, you need to also practice really, really hard in order to get there. And that's the same thing. Like, you can't expect, if you only focus always on brain work and being very rational, sitting in front of the computer all the time, and never really connecting with yourself, that you suddenly can do all these things. You have the potential, but it's something where you need to spend some time with and practice it.
What's an aura?
It's the energy field, basically. So, what people usually see is the physical body. That's what we have, and we all know, okay, we have that. That's where we are. But we're a consciousness having a physical experience. And outside of this physical body, we have our energetic bodies. And that typically is referred to as the aura. It can even be visualized by certain types of photography, but you can feel it. And I think that's way better than visualizing it, because I always encourage people to just, maybe close their eyes, just first feel very present in your body, and just be inside, and just don't go somewhere else with your thoughts. Be here. And then at some point, you'll notice that there's a space around you, and you can feel that. And that's basically part of, if you do yoga, you feel that more, or something like that, Tai Chi, things like that. Yeah, that's what it is. It's as much our existence as the physical body is. It's not less, just because we don't focus on it much.
Yeah, we don't focus on it much. And you mentioned, you said this is contrary to your corporate life, and this is all feels like it's beaten out of us if we had it at childhood. Why do you think that is? Why are we all living like this if there's more that we have and then now it's gone because of our choices?
That's a very, very deep question. And I think there are multiple layers to that. I really think on the broadest level that you can look at, it's just something that is part of the experience, because the consciousness wants to experience itself, and it can only do that through certain ways and acting. So the process of forgetting who we are and our full potential is part of the journey to actually come back to the source and find that again and make an experience how it is if you feel disconnected from it, but then you're able to really go through that journey to get back to the source, if you will, and to unlock your consciousness, because we always have this full consciousness available to us. That's often a misconception always, people, this is such a conscious being. What happens if there's a very conscious being, it's they've unlocked most of their consciousness. And so that also, when I choose these words, it really means that we can all do that. And a lot of people right now are actually doing that, whether consciously or subconsciously. Part of it is what's happening on Earth, or what's been happening, is putting pressure on all human beings, basically, to also go inwards. Some don't take that offer, frankly, and they go deeper into the forgetting, right? Into the, just turning the head away from it. But a lot of humans right now are waking up to, what does it even mean to be human? Who am I? What am I? All that. That's a normal process. And yeah, so I think on that level, this is really, it's the experience. We are having this experience, and it's part of it to experience this full journey of everything. And then, there's this other level, which may be the deepest level in the material, that certainly there are forces, that have an interest in keeping most of humanity kind of like in the box of the five senses. Because as you are in the five senses, in this little small box, you can be manipulated and controlled in a way easier fashion. If we start to be connected to what's outside of this little box and connect to everything that we are, suddenly we realize there's no one that can control us, or should, which may not be to the benefit of some forces. I don't want to get into that, because I also don't even have very hard feelings about that, because I think it's all part of it, because I described this overarching picture in the beginning. What it is, what I just described, is just, that's kind of like the scene on the theater stage, if you will. It's a necessary part, though. All these players play a role in order for the big to happen. And humanity right now, and I know this, is going through this bottleneck, if you will, and a lot of consciousness is opening up.
I was already thinking about this, and that even leads to it. A friend of mine and I have an argument, and I believe that there's no such thing as an evil person. Even the most awful serial killer thinks they're a good person and thinks they're making good decisions. She claims that there are just people that are malicious and bad, and even born that way potentially. Do you see evil auras? What are you on either side of that argument based on the fact that you can sense these energies?
I would again describe different levels, because there are different levels. On one level, everything is part of the one, if you will, right? There's always this one source. That doesn't mean at all that we're all equal or all the same, because we're frankly not. That's a big misconception. Like, we're all completely unique. We have the same source. That doesn't mean we're all the same, though. That's the first thing. On this other level, here in the material world, if you will, I see that there are psychopaths, frankly, that are really disconnected from that source, almost to a point where not only can they not feel that source anymore, but it's it's really almost a complete disconnection. And that is why certain actions can even be manufactured and followed on that end, because a normal sentient being that hasn't lost much of that connection couldn't do some of those things that a real psychopath would do. So would I call them evil? Well, on one level, there are evil actions, but it's rather, if you look at it in a rather loving way, that there's someone that is so disconnected through own trauma. This doesn't justify at all what they're doing, but it maybe gives us the perspective, yes, this shouldn't be, this is not what we as humans as a whole here want on Earth anymore. But maybe it gives us a level of understanding, at least, why that is even happening, because often we can't wrap our heads around what is happening. That's my perspective.
Okay. Is there a way to change your aura? Would you want to? I mean, I guess in the sense of disconnection, you would want to get back to that, but yeah. What about just like the flavor of your aura?
Yeah, so that's kind of connected. So, I think the most important is really here in the heart, and it's our inner power, our inner force. And as we connect more and more with that, we tend to encounter some of the shadows that we all have inside. And we can start to transform those and just become more whole. That's healing, right? Healing means to become whole on multiple levels. And we can do multiple things, right? We can live a healthier life. We can do some yoga. We can do some meditation. We can do just simple sitting for a minute or two and just feel our bodies. That's already healing to us, because we're not just brain or body focused. Like, we take into account all that we are, and we're connecting more with that. As we're doing that, also our own aura becomes stronger in a way, and not as weak, if that makes sense. And yes, so in on that level, I mean, I encourage everybody to open up to their inner self and their inner voice or inner power, for sure, because it's anyway part of the journey. I know sometimes it's a little, we think it's not important or so, but hey, it's actually the most important. There's nothing else as important as that, frankly.
Interesting. Go ahead, Max, you look like you.
Well, I mean, evil in a sense of like individuals, but I think if you look at it as a bigger ecosystem, then there can't be an evil, there can't be a good, because if you back up more and more, then everyone's sort of working in the germ that's trying to kill me, my body isn't trying to kill me. That's not evil. That germ is trying to survive. I'm trying to kill the germ, blah, blah, blah. Should we talk about quantum? Should we get quantum?
Sure, absolutely.
What is it?
Well, quantum energy is basically the energy that we all have in our cells. It's the energy behind the matter. I'm not going to go into quantum mechanics here or something like that. We're going to stay very tangible, because actually it rather has more to do with the ether rather than something like a fictitious concept of quantum mechanics. And we've been able to create a technology that can concentrate pure natural quantum energy in a way that there's some amazing things possible. One of those things is that, we can charge ourselves up with that quantum energy, leverage that. It's similar to, our bodies need water, and ideally good water. So if we run around in the desert and we don't get any water, we feel completely drained and ultimately will die. If we get water, wonderful. Same on the energy level. We live in a world here where we live in a 5G soup or EMF soup in general. There's a lot of toxins around, and those things drain our bodies, but they also tend to drain our energetic system. Like the EMFs actually can have an impact on the energetic system quite a bit. So think of this desert picture. You feel drained from not having water. Now you feel drained because there's not so much energy, and you're always constantly working and doing stuff. If you're very conscious and connected and all of that, those things don't matter much because you are so strong in your physical and energetic existence that because you're the source, you're very strong. And then EMF doesn't matter. You could sleep under an EMF tower, a Wi-Fi tower. It does not matter. But that's not the case for most people. So we drain because of that. Now with that quantum energy, you can sort of recharge yourself. And it's, it sounds very woo-woo. And I want to say to all the listeners out here that, yes, it is woo-woo, absolutely. But what is woo-woo? Woo-woo is not anything that's not real. It's actually real, but it's something that we may not yet understand, and we have not maybe thought about it, and we have so much science to back it up, and we'll get into that. So bear with us here. But I want to explain this woo-woo concept because that's just so important. And this energy can have amazing impacts on all physiological systems because it helps on one end on the consciousness level. That's something we rarely ever talk about because everyone is still so physically oriented and materially oriented. But no, it does help us to deeper and faster connect and unlock our consciousness. Just let's park that. What else does it do? It helps plants grow faster. It helps animals, and it helps humans in a quite fascinating way to get not only in a balance, but to really promote some positive physiological change, which can be measured by the heart rate variability, by lots of different other methods that our products have been tested through by various institutes. And one of those really interesting methods is actually the so-called live blood analysis. It's called dark field microscopy. And it's quite fascinating. So people have probably heard about it, but it's interesting. In Europe, it's still very widely used as a tool for doctors and practitioners to analyze the health and to look at what may be wrong, what could be done. And, I'm from Europe originally. We've lived in the US since way over 10 years now. And I've always wondered, why is it not so widely used here? I know now since 2.5 weeks, because 20 years ago, it was decided that, let's just charge every practitioner that uses dark field microscopy $100,000 per year as a license. And there you go. I mean, who does that, right? You can still use it without a license here as a researcher. But I want to say, it's the tool to look at what's going on physiologically with your health. If you look at the blood, because you can literally take this microscope and through illumination, you can see the blood cells. You can see the red blood cells, the white blood cells, really live. You can see how they behave and how they look like. And then if you introduce changes, let's say you have someone in a room with no Wi-Fi, and that happened in those studies, you can see what's going on. And then you can see, what if we turn Wi-Fi on, a 4G or 5G router, And you can literally see how the blood reacts. Okay. And there's this so-called blood clumping. You know, we know the blood clotting, for example, and then in these pictures, it shows like money rolls, you know, because the blood cells start to stack and they all kind of like start to clump. And that's, you know, that definitely means a higher risk for heart attack, stroke, heart disease, and all kinds of other stuff. And you can read a whole lot more out of it. But, you know, that's just one big example. And yeah, so what the doctors did in looking then at our products is then they introduced our products and also looked again, okay, so what happens with the blood? And initially we just did various tests, you know, by those doctors. That was in Austria. And in 100% of the cases, they found out there's significant improvement. So, but that wasn't enough. That was just, okay, great. That's good to know. And then here in the US, Dr. Beverly Rubik, who's very well known, she's done these studies for decades and has published multiple peer-reviewed papers. She was very skeptical, probably like some in the audience right now, like, you know, something like that can't work. But I had heard that she was very concerned about EMF for humanity, frankly. So I had reached out to her and said, we may have a solution here for that. Anyway, so she then said, I looked at these pictures and everything, and there seems to be some evidence, but it's not enough for me to believe that this really works. Long story short, she ended up suggesting a randomized, sham-controlled, double-blind study. And she suggested 4 test persons. And then I said, well, 4 test persons. So when we get those study results back, what are people going to say? You know, that's not a big sample size. And she said, I'm still under the assumption that it's not going to work. So I don't want to blow your budget. And we're going to do 4 test persons first. If that works, then we know it works, and I know it works, and then we'll do a second study with the largest sample size to show the statistical significance. Okay, both of those studies so far now have happened with complete validation in 100% of the cases. Stage 1 and stage 2 of blood clotting was completely reversed. All the negative impacts of EMF was not only reversed, but in many cases, actually way more than that. So you could call it 150% success because it was even better than before. White blood cell activity and motility increased, and all of that only in 10 minutes. So now there's real scientific proof, and there's lots of more studies, frankly. We don't have to go into all that. I think this is the most tangible and interesting for people. And yeah, so it's quite fascinating and mind-blowing, and it hopefully opens up some people's minds also to, hey, you know, I may not be able to touch it and fully understand it, but this stuff is really real and it works.
Yeah, there's a lot of studies on your website too, if anybody wants to go to find those out. A lot of times people say, you know, this stuff is all, it's like woo-woo, like way back when we didn't think smoking was that bad. We didn't think too much sunlight was that bad. You know, everything's sort of woo-woo magical until somebody figures it out. Is that hard for you to sort of constantly try to be winning people over in terms of, it seems like you're fighting overwhelming skepticism on a daily basis.
It's actually not like that. So first of all, I'm not bothered by it. Second of all, the ones that don't even get it or don't want to understand it, you know, they can do that. That's totally fine. It's their choice. And then they're not the right ones to get the benefits of our products, frankly. You know, I'm not here to convince anybody. We're sharing, we're showing what the science says, and we have a private user group of now over 2,500 people on Telegram, which is really the user community, and people talk all the times about the amazing stuff that's happening to them. But hey, if there's still people out there that are not there yet or don't want to understand it, totally fine, totally good, totally understand it. we're not even trying, because there's it's a great group of people and growing number of healers and other people that become more sensitive that are trying this and seeing these real effects. And that's for me the fun, to work with those people. I don't need to, work with everybody. That's it's fine.
You mentioned reversing the problems of 5G. I mean, I'm still stuck on the fact that there's something going wrong in my body because I'm exposed to all this stuff. There's physical evidence of that when you're around something like, Wi-Fi and such, that it harms you, and you can see that under this what was it called? Dark field
microscope.
Dark field microscope. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see it. There are tens of thousands of studies, frankly, since decades already. It didn't just start with 4G and 5G. And I kind of know what I'm talking about. Because I know both sides, right? I used to work in the telecommunications business, and now I'm doing this. I'm not saying, by the way, that EMF is always terrible, because there's so many great benefits about it, and it's good to acknowledge that also, and not just be against it, but it's good to be aware of the downsides. And indeed, you don't need even a dark field microscope. You can measure the heart rate variability, same thing. And then there's lots of other studies that are even, obviously long term, that look into lots of other things that go even deeper. So yeah, there is absolute evidence that it's something, but it's also something we don't feel, right? So we don't necessarily feel that, we go somewhere and it's draining us in a way, and it's paralyzing our white blood cells. Is that something you feel? No, we don't feel that. It's like we just don't have that level of granular sensitivity, if you will. So yeah, it's, I think, good to be aware of it. It's not good to be afraid of it. I don't suggest that, to be afraid of EMF, because that just by itself has an effect that it gets harder to deal with it.
Oh no, now I'm afraid of being afraid of EMF. When you were on the other side of it, did they know this and are just trying to be cool about it, don't tweet anything?
I'm certain that some people knew about it also at the time, but I'm also certain 100%, I know this because I worked on that level, that the vast majority, even of executives there at that time, at least, had no clue, had really, honestly, like no clue. It wasn't that you didn't want to talk about it, or that never ever had I heard a single time that, let's not talk about this. No, but it just wasn't a topic, and people weren't aware. And it was also something, maybe they didn't even think this was really a problem. It's all those people talking about EMF. That's just some like alternative views. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of really, so honestly, I don't think people had that perspective. I think this may have changed now, because a lot of that has come to the surface, and also with 5G, I think much more awareness has happened. We all know about some of those studies that they've done in Europe and in other places. Now we have even airline executives coming out in front of the 5G rollout in the US saying, this could endanger the whole flight traffic, and, we rather shouldn't do that. People are like, oh my God, so it's coming, it's kind of like trickling into the consciousness of humanity more and more. So now I'm assuming that more people there are aware of it. Is it time yet for any of those big telco players to acknowledge that? It'd be wonderful, frankly. And I think maybe at some point I may have to leverage some of my old connections there and seek the dialogue about this, because I think there will be the time where we can work together, because now we have a technology that can actually mitigate it. But the problem is, if you think about a huge, gigantic industry, if they were to acknowledge that there is a problem, it's something uncontrollable for that whole industry, and something, possibly a big backlash of that, including lots of, I don't know, possibly even lawsuits, what have you. So I think right now is honestly not yet the time. I don't see any of them coming out in that regard. But maybe at some point we can work on that one can come out and say, yeah, we acknowledge that there's a problem, but we've already fixed it now. Now you don't have to worry about it. All the phones that we're selling now are all charged. All the Wi-Fi towers, all the 5G routers that we're putting there, they're already all charged. That would be kind of like the ideal scenario, but I think it's not quite the time for that yet.
Yeah, I didn't realize there's a solution. When you talk about it trickling in, Max and I have certainly come across this now, that it's a problem, but you're the first person we've talked to that has said there's a way to solve it.
Yep.
Well, okay, 5G is worse than 4G, is that right?
Yeah, so 3G was already quite bad, frankly, and there are studies out there that are very difficult to find, but 3G was quite a big problem. The positive thing about 3G was that you didn't have it all over the place. And 5G now has basically two issues that come with it. One is that the cell towers are in a much closer distance to each other. So you have to have a lot more cell towers than in the past to cover a certain area. And the second thing is that the pulsing of how 5G actually works is much more unnatural to how our system works. So it's almost as now all the time someone's poking you. That's kind of what it is energetically. Again, nothing to be super afraid of, because as these things come, there are also solutions to deal with it. And even just by really connecting more with yourself, unlock more of your consciousness, be more aware of yourself, and tune in more, you already do half the work yourself.
Yeah, you mentioned that you can't feel the effects. That surprised me. I thought someone like your wife would be able to at least sense it, or if you're around 5G, like if you're sitting in the middle of a tower, that you would start feeling pretty crappy.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that obviously, if you have the ability to see these things and be more aware on a granular level, then yes, absolutely, you can feel it. But when I say usually you can't feel it, that speaks to maybe 99.5% of humanity, because we're just not trained to feel that. But I mean, there are obviously some people that are extremely sensitive to EMF, right? They don't necessarily have the full, aura seeing and all that, but they just go in a room. And I know of some of those people, they go in a room where there's Wi-Fi, and if there's no protection and they're not wearing anything to protect them, they can't stay there. They have to get out, and that's so. There are some people that have a very, very granular sensitivity.
Is that a gift or a curse? My goodness. Okay, yeah, you talked about charging phones and solving this problem. How do we do it, and what do we use?
Yeah. So, and that's not the only. So we're not the only solution. I think we're the most comprehensive solution and most advanced solution that's out there. You don't want to use these little stickers that you put on the back of your cell phone, because they don't work. We know, I mean, maybe there's one out there that works, but we tested 12 of them, 12 different kinds, and none of them had even any effect, not even 1%. Nothing happened. It's a complete, absolute joke. And the reason why we looked at them was because we thought initially, well, this is kind of cool. If we could charge them and then make them even better, that would be nice. But they didn't even have any function to begin with. So but there are some options out there. I think, Biogeometry, for example, is a company that has shown quite some good results in regards to EMF. And obviously, our technology that we've created now has all of the products that we offer have EMF protection. So we have a clothing line that completely even blocks EMF. And then we have, the actual technology that we offer that I described, because we want to make it available in a decentralized fashion and not be the only ones that have that. And then we have multiple other products like this so-called Heal Capsule. That's something for protection on the go. But all of these products are not just for EMF. So that's the one big differentiator. So let's say our Quantum Block or Infinity Block, which is the extension of the actual technology. Yes, the EMF harmonization and neutralization is one big effect, obviously, which is great, but it's just 1/10 of what the technology can be used for. And that's the beauty of it, because that concentrated quantum energy field offers even more possibilities. So as you said, you can charge things with it. So not only can you put your hands inside or your feet, for example, and then leverage the physical benefits of that, but you could put a glass of water inside, for example, or your groceries, and charge them with pure quantum energy. So now what does that do? Okay, is that just some fancy, cool stuff? You put your water in and then you drink it and hey, cool, I got some quantum energy. Yeah, it's kind of cool, but it's actually also really awesome because it structures the water in a way never seen before by anything else. So if your listeners have heard of the so-called Emoto Institute, Emoto was the Japanese scientist that proved that you can change the energy in water. And they created a method on how they freeze water and then visualize the crystals in water. And it's quite fascinating work. And so they tested our products, some of our products, and they found out that within 3 minutes, the Quantum Block was able to improve the water so much like they've never seen it before with anything in such a short time frame. So in their world, out of one beautiful crystal that was in the so-called control water, after 3 minutes of charging in the Quantum Block, there were suddenly 5 beautiful crystals. So that for them was so impressive that they want to bring these products to Japan now. And what does it mean? You basically drink healthier water. You drink water that's much more available to your cells and much more nourishing to your cells. And you feel that. And people, that's one of those things that in the user group, you can ask probably almost anybody, do you feel a difference or taste a difference of water that you charged or that you didn't charge? And yeah, it's the case. It's different. So yeah, those things you can do. You can copy frequencies. It's very simple to use, by the way. It's really not like, it's really simple to use. But for frequency, usually we think now, oh my God, I have to program stuff. That, that's not for me. No, you don't have to program anything. You just take a piece of a healing plant, for example, inside and put a glass of water inside with it. And within a few seconds only, the frequency of the healing plant will also be in the water and you can drink it. Or if you wanted to have one of those capsules or a silver coin or whatever for your pocket, you could charge the silver coin with pure quantum energy and let's say a healing frequency of frankincense or whatever you want. You could even, take your typical nutritions that you take, your supplements, and create the frequencies of these supplements and put them on the silver coin. So your system has the molecular frequencies of these nutritions available. So those are just some examples of what you can do with it. And again, in a pretty simple manner.
So the frequencies always move in a positive direction. If I have crappy water in there and then something good that I want to send to the water, it won't go the other way.
Well, I mean, you can actually do that, right? You can actually influence water, indeed, with your thoughts. It depends a little bit on how unlocked your consciousness is. So how strong is the energy that you can really create? And often, if we're not so connected, then we have a lot of doubts that this doesn't even work. And then with that, actually, we're kind of like diminishing the effect of it. But yeah, I mean, Emoto showed that, for example, if you take a piece of paper and you write hate on it, and you put a glass of water on top of that, and then you have one piece of paper where you write love on it, there's a difference in the structure of the water. It's easily showable. And water is a little bit different, right? Water is not like a silver coin, because water absorbs energy very, very fast. If you wanted to charge, a gold ring, for example, that'd be a lot harder to do. I mean, you couldn't do it, frankly, with just a piece of paper and writing the word love on it. That wouldn't do anything to the gold ring. But with our technology, if you put the ring in, after that, it has a higher and finer vibration, for example.
So this is going against the argument that there is no good and bad. This is saying there is good, and you can put good into different objects and in your body and drink it in water. Yeah.
So no, on this level here, obviously there is good and bad, and there's always these two different ends of something, right? On this material level, certainly. But we try to not categorize into negative and positive. And that's kind of very important, because if you put something in the quantum block, for example, it neutralizes everything, any and everything that is destructive or harmful to consciousness or to a living organism on a frequency level. And that is kind of the key. What is destructive or harmful versus what is life supporting and consciousness supporting? And those are the categories that we look at, because something negative can indeed also be positive, and you do something positive that could also have a negative impact at some point, right? So we try to not categorize in that. But there is good and bad, and on a high level, there is no good and bad anymore, because on one level, there's just the unity anyway, right? But, we're not really with our consciousness on that level, though. Most of the time.
Right. Well, okay. I've seen pictures of the quantum block. Can you kind of describe, because this is mostly an audio podcast, what it is and how you...
Unless you have one.
Well, yeah, I have one, for the two.
Yes.
So, this is how it looks like. I could not fit my head in there. My wife can. Some other people can. But, it's now the size, you listeners. And it's basically two plates, one on the top, one on the bottom. And then the Infinity Block has 3 plates on the top and 3 on the bottom. And inside those plates, there's a highly concentrated quantum energy space, actually. And that radiates out, right? So that's why if you just don't do anything with it, you just put it in your home, it just harmonizes, the frequencies and the energy in the home, including EMF, obviously. It has a radius of about 145 feet. The quantum block does, and the Infinity Block has a much bigger radius of about a kilometer, how much is that? Like 0.6 miles or something like that. So that's quite big. And so that's pretty much what it is, this concentrated quantum energy space. And, through the work with it, we found out these various things that you can do with it. And I think every week we're getting new test results back from what it actually does. And it's mind blowing. I'm not saying it's not mind blowing.
Why don't you have a house made of this material?
Yeah.
Well, that will be too much. I think, because we have a product which is called the Infinity Block package. It's basically 2 infinity blocks. And the concept behind it is that if you have physically 2 of these, you can do unlimited upgrades of the concentration of this quantum energy field, which is quite awesome, frankly, for the future, because maybe in a year or two, you want to be on a completely different concentration level than you're today. However, that's just something where it's not about stronger, faster, like now, because it matters. This energy is quite powerful, and you shouldn't upgrade it too fast and have too much of that energy, because it could start detox effects that could be bothersome at some point if the level is too high, or even have an impact on the nervous system where you feel like, it's just too much, like, whoa, it's you want to be mindful about that. And that's why I wouldn't suggest to have a whole house charged, or built out of this material, fully charged. That will be a little bit too much.
And what material is it? What is it about that metal? What type of metal, or is it the shape?
Yep. Yeah, we use different types of materials. Now, the block specifically, that's golden anodized aluminum. I think gold as a metal would be the perfect metal to actually use for that. But then we couldn't afford it in the production process, and no one could afford to buy it and have it. That's why we're not using gold. And yeah, through all of our tests, that was just a great metal for this specific technology. Now, for these capsules, we use brass and medical grade titanium with these spheres inside. Also has brass is an amazing metal for that specifically. Yeah, so there are various metals with pretty good qualities. And metal is different from like a plastic or a cloth or something like that, or even wood, in that it absorbs quantum energy very well, holds it very well, actually pretty much forever. And it transmits the energy. That means if I have this silver coin that I described, and then I charge it, and then after that, this quantum energy transmits outwards. So you could literally use that silver coin beneficially to you if you just have it in your pocket. And the same is actually true if I, were to charge my phone. Same thing. I don't want to say you then have a healing device in your pocket, but it has also these visible effects. Like, we've done tests where you are on your phone, you're surfing and taking a phone call, and it shows on the blood, for example, on the heart rate variability or a bioresonance machine, what it does to your organ functions, etc. And then that phone was charged and then given back to the person, does this very same thing, and it has a completely different effect. And I tell you one more thing, which may be interesting to hear. So at the biohacking conference in Orlando, I think it was in September, the big Bulletproof conference, I had a presentation in front of about 100 people, and I was talking about this science. We were really digging pretty deep into the science. A lot of doctors and practitioners were there. But then before the presentation, I thought, well, it would be kind of cool if we could show and demonstrate something live on stage. It's kind of hard to do that, with blood tests and stuff like that. Like, how do you do that at a conference?
Can we get a volunteer? We need your blood.
Exactly. Yeah. Come here and let's see what happens. So then there was biohacker Todd. I don't know if you know Todd, but he's a pretty famous biohacker, has a following of way over 40,000 people. And he is allergic to honey, allergic to crab meat, and allergic to avocado. Now, he's enough of a biohacker that he actually tested these things on his own, and he figured, okay, what if I put the honey or the crab meat inside the infinity block in that case, and then consume it? And he found out that each time he puts it in for a few minutes, I think in his case it was 6 to 7 minutes, he could tolerate these substances completely with no allergic reactions. And he was like, oh my God, I don't have allergic reactions anymore. Crazy. He did it again, happened again, no allergic reaction. So, and then he thought at first that the allergic reaction was completely gone, and he tried the honey and the avocado without charging it, and he had the allergic reaction again because he didn't charge it. Then he did the experiment again and he charged it, and again, no allergic reaction. Then scientist Ian Mitchell had the idea, well, you know, if that works all the time anyway, then we should be able to demonstrate it with a derma test, you know, on your skin, and that's what we're going to do live on stage. And I was like, oh my God, you know, I felt like in a circus, almost like you're, I don't know, fire and something, you know, but because I hadn't seen it, I just heard from him, and I heard from other people that it works, but I don't have allergies, so I couldn't try it myself. Anyway, long story short, they had crab meat, put it in his arm live on stage, and it started to swell and get red, and he got all these little bumps and got really itchy. The same crab meat they then put live on stage in the infinity block for those 6.5 minutes, and then they took it out and put it in the other arm. No allergic reaction, and we actually have a video of that also. And that's just something where you're like, this is crazy. Like, how does that work? But it does work. But by the way, please don't try that at home. Like, really, it's like this with that specific thing. You know, I don't want anyone to try it. Really, that's really your own risk, and we need to do a lot more research, because we also don't know. You know, would this be true for all kinds of substances? And you know, it's just too much research to be done on that end. You know, with the blood, we can already comfortably say, yeah, this has been proven over and over again. We've gotten all those studies. That is just an example of something pretty profound that we're looking into deeper.
That's pretty exciting. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and wait, tell me about the clothing as well.
Yeah, so that is indeed for blocking EMF. So that will be, actually I have a t-shirt here right now. So that's with high purity silver fabric. So all the clothing items that we have block over 99.9% of any EMF. And that means really blocking it, like it doesn't even get through. And on top of that, we charge these clothing items with our technology. So while it's blocking EMF, you still get the benefit of the positive quantum energy, which also has been shown to have positive effect on the blood and your overall health, etc. So, yeah, I mean, that's, I don't wear this too often because I'm not too concerned about EMF, and I'm not someone that needs to actually block it, especially when I'm in my office or at home, because I have the blocks. But it still feels very good, and especially if I'm in an airplane or so, I would always, wear it. It's quite beneficial.
So if it truly blocks Wi-Fi, putting my phone in my shirt, wouldn't it then lose connectivity?
Yeah, that's actually true. So you may have to, if it's a 5G signal and what is it called? Like this iPhone, the latest iPhone, those antennas are so strong that you may have to fold the t-shirt twice, because again, it doesn't block 100%. It blocks like over 99 to 99.9% of it. But yeah, no, I've actually made a video. We've had several customers also made videos where they showed with the meter actually right next to the Wi-Fi point, how much was there, and then they put the t-shirt in between or vice versa, and it was just a huge difference. Wow. Yeah, that indeed happens. I had a friend that didn't believe that would work. Then he emailed me. He's like, "Oh my God, I just did this, and I couldn't get a cell phone connectivity signal anymore. I called my cell phone, and it didn't ring."
Oh, that's funny. It feels like it's a lot of that, though. It's a lot of like, oh, whatever, and then you're like, try it, and then.
Yeah, that's true.
Wild. That's so funny.
Yeah, but in general, we're more about, EMF is really just one part of this whole thing, and I think the whole neutralization and harmonization aspect is the better way to go in general. This is nice to protect your organs, maybe also if you're very sensitive, but in general, you still want to have your Wi-Fi and cell phone connectivity, right? So, because it's useful.
So if I charge something, I mean, I guess you already spoke about this, that people can taste the difference between charged water. So I will be able to sense, even though I feel like I'm not sensitive to this kind of thing at all, would I be able to pick up something charged versus not?
Probably, yeah. So, and that's actually another aspect of this technology. As people use it more, not only does the technology anyway help with unlocking more of the consciousness, which I said in the beginning, it's also that you start to do these tests. You charge your raspberries, and then part of your raspberries you didn't charge, and then you taste. And as you do more of that, you become more sensitive to the differences. So you're training yourself in observing these things. And with the water, yeah, most people feel it. And what we did initially is we actually had blind tests at home, where we had people come over, and we gave them this water and that water, and they had no clue what it was. And so we did a lot of that testing. Yeah,
definitely makes me
some people may
want to try it out.
So here's another thing. So this example with the ring, or if you have a Rolex watch as an example, okay, those are pieces that are usually already very beautiful in general. It's already very high quality metals. Maybe it's even gold. But if you charge it in an infinity block, as an example, everyone that can sense energy or see energy sees an amazing difference in the vibration of that, and the quality of the metal comes out like never before. However, most people can't really see and sense on that level. So for them, they may say, it's more beautiful now. That's how they can categorize. They can't really know where does this come from and why is it, but it feels more beautiful. That's how they would say it. And we've had actually many customers now over the time where initially they had more trouble with perceiving these things, and now they're way more advanced in that, because you can train a little bit with it. It's kind of fun.
This has definitely been fascinating, definitely mind-opening, very different than anything that we've touched on in the past. Where can the Fitheads find what you do?
Yeah, well, again, thanks for having me on, and especially with a topic that's not so widely discussed. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. And so obviously we have a website, lilaq.com. That's something where people can just take a look at. We have a YouTube channel and BitChute channel with some videos. But I think the most interesting one is actually this Telegram group, because it's a private user group. It's not really, there's not information coming from us. I mean, we share there too, all the new study results and stuff like that, but it's mainly an interaction between users. And then questions. People ask questions and I answer them, but a lot of other users answer those too. So I can share that link with you. Actually, I'm gonna email that to you, because it's a private group. You couldn't find it on Telegram if you search for it. But with that invite link, anyone that wants to can join it. And, you don't have to engage. You can just listen in and, maybe you're interested in reading more. But if you then have questions, just go ask them. It's a group of wonderful people. And you can find me there directly as well.
Great. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Certainly. Thanks for having me.
And thank you to the Fit Heads. If you can rate and review on Apple Podcasts, we love that. And we will see you next week.